What if I told you that 1971 wasn't just a good year for music? It was maybe the most important year of the entire decade. This was before the industry had a formula, before focus groups decided what got played, before anyone really knew what a hit was supposed to sound like. Artists were just making things, and somehow those things took over the world. The songs on this list didn't follow a playbook. Some came from arguments, some came from pain, some came from a single moment in a studio that nobody expected to mean anything. And yet here we are, 50 years later, and you still know every word. These are the 15 most played songs of 1971. And trust me, the stories behind them are just as good as the music. 15. What's going on? Here's something most people don't know. Motown tried to stop this song from ever reaching you. Berry Gordy, the man who built the label, heard it and called it the worst thing he'd ever heard. He didn't want it released. He thought it was too political, too risky, too far outside what R&B was supposed to be. But Marvin Gaye had watched his brother come home from Vietnam broken.
What's going on? What's going on?
He'd watched the protests, the violence, the country tearing itself apart, and he decided that none of that was going to stay silent. He recorded it anyway, pushed it through, and forced Gordy's hand. What's Going On didn't just sell, it completely redefined what black artists were allowed to say on record. 14. It's Too Late. Tapestry wasn't made in a grand studio with a big budget and an army of producers. It was made simply, quietly, almost like Carole King was writing letters she never planned to send. And It's Too Late was the centerpiece of all of it.
And it's too late, baby, now it's too late.
What makes this song extraordinary isn't the production, it's honesty. King wasn't performing emotion, she was reporting it. The relationship is over, and she knows it. And she's not angry about it, just clear. That kind of emotional precision is almost impossible to fake. Tapestry went on to become one of the best-selling albums in history, and this song was the quiet heart of everything. Some hits announced themselves loudly. This one just told the truth and waited. 13. Maggie May. This was never supposed to be the song. Rod Stewart recorded it as a B-side, the kind of track you throw on the back of a single just to fill the space. Nobody was paying attention to it. Nobody thought it mattered. And then DJs started flipping the record over. They heard something in Maggie May that the label hadn't noticed, something raw and real, and completely unlike what was on the other side. It was autobiographical in a way that most pop songs at the time simply weren't messy, honest, and completely unpolished. It hit #1 in the United States and the United Kingdom at the same time, which almost never happens. And just like that, Rod Stewart wasn't a promising artist anymore. He was a star. The song that was never supposed to lead became the one that defined his entire career. 12. Joy to the World. Hoyt Axton wrote this song and didn't think much of it. It was a loose, almost silly idea. He never bothered to record it himself, so he handed it off. The way you'd give away something you don't think has any value.
Sing joy to the world. All of
Three Dog Night took it, recorded it, and turned it into the #1 song of the entire year on the Billboard charts. Not just a hit, the biggest hit of 1971. Three Dog Night brought an energy and conviction to it that transformed something throwaway into something genuinely joyful and impossible to ignore. And Axton, the man who wrote it and gave it away because he didn't believe in it, had to watch from the outside as it became his most lasting legacy. There's a real lesson buried in that story. Sometimes other people can see exactly what you can't in your own work. 11. How can you mend a broken heart? Most people connect the Bee Gees to disco, to Saturday Night Fever, to that whole era of white suits and dance floors. But here's what gets forgotten. Before any of that, they made this, a soft, almost fragile ballad.
How can you mend the broken hearts?
That cracked the American market wide open in 1971 and became their very first US #1. No disco, no production spectacle, just three brothers, and a melody that felt like it came from somewhere genuinely painful. The lyrics didn't try to be clever or poetic, they just asked a question that everyone already knew the answer to. The emotional core that would later power some of the biggest songs of the 70s was already fully formed right here. Most people give Saturday Night Fever all the credit, but if you want to understand the Bee Gees, this is actually where the story starts. 10. Lonely Days. 2 entries from the same band in a single year. That almost never happens. And it tells you something important about where the Bee Gees were in 1971. They were on a creative run that most artists never experience once, let alone sustain. Lonely Days had peaked in early 1971 after a late 1970 release.
Lonely days, lonely nights.
And what stands out listening to it now is Barry Gibb's falsetto. That voice, the one that would eventually define an entire era of popular music, was already there, fully developed, hiding inside a soft rock ballad that most casual listeners have half forgotten. What's remarkable is how complete it already sounded. Nothing tentative, nothing unfinished. Disco didn't create that sound. It just turned up the volume on something that already existed. The Bee Gees of Saturday Night Fever were built right here, years before anyone knew what was coming. 9. Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves. Right before this song came out, Cher's television show had been canceled. She and Sonny were at a low point commercially and personally, and the variety show era that had made them household names was clearly ending.
Gypsies, tramps, and thieves. We hear it from the people of the town. They call us
The label wasn't even sure about releasing this one. It was dark, narrative, strange for pop radio. Not the kind of thing that was supposed to become a hit in 1971, but it went to number 1 anyway. And more importantly, it did something that nothing before it had managed to do. It launched Cher as a solo artist in her own right, completely separate from Sonny, completely separate from the TV persona. Sometimes getting canceled turns out to be exactly the thing that forces you towards something better. 8. Go Away, Little Girl. This song had already been a number 1 hit twice before Donnie Osmond ever touched it. Goffin and King wrote it, Steve Lawrence took it to number 1, Bobby V took it to number 1, and then Donnie recorded it and took it to number 1 again.
Go away, little girl. I'm not supposed.
3 different versions, 3 different eras, 3 trips to the top of the charts. That almost never happens in pop music. The Osmonds machine was built to sell to teenagers, and it worked with a kind of precision that the industry rarely achieves. Every element was calculated: the look, the sound, the timing, the audience. Was it the definitive version? Probably not, but it was the right version at exactly the right moment, aimed at exactly the right audience, delivered by exactly the right face. In pop music, timing isn't everything, but it's for most things. 7. Tired of Being Alone. Al Green recorded this with almost nothing. A small Memphis studio, a minimal budget, virtually no profile outside the American South. And then this song started moving. Not quickly, not with some dramatic chart explosion, but slowly, almost on word of mouth alone.
I'm so tired of on my own. Won't you help me now? Just
Until it climbed into the top 5 and introduced one of the greatest voices in the history of American music to the rest of the world. There was no hype machine behind it, no industry push, no carefully engineered rollout, just a voice so singular and so emotionally direct that people couldn't ignore it once they heard it. Some careers launch with noise and spectacle. Al Green's career didn't launch at all, really. It arrived, quietly, on its own terms, in its own time, like it had always been there waiting for the world to catch up. 6. Take Me Home, Country Roads. Here's the part of this story most people don't know. John Denver almost didn't get credit for writing it. The song was co-written with Bill Danoff and Taffy Nivert, and there was real tension over ownership, over who deserved what, over whose name went on the credits. Denver had to fight for his place on that song. Song that would become his entire public identity, the one most people would associate with him for the rest of his life and beyond, nearly wasn't his at all. He fought for it anyway, pushed through the disagreement, and came out the other side with his name on it, and West Virginia became his The mountains became his. The whole image became his. Sometimes the thing that defines you doesn't arrive cleanly. Sometimes you have to recognize it and hold on tight before someone else takes it. 5. Just My Imagination. By the time the Temptations recorded this, the classic lineup was already falling apart. David Ruffin was gone. Eddie Kendricks was preparing to leave. The tension inside the group had been building for years, pulling at the seams of everything they'd built together.
But it was just my imagination.
None of that is audible in this song. Just My Imagination sounds effortless, almost weightless, completely at peace with the world. The harmonies are immaculate, the arrangement is gentle, and there isn't a single note that hints at the chaos happening just beneath the surface. They recorded what turned out to be their final great moment as a unit without realizing that's what it was. That's the thing about endings. They rarely announce themselves with any kind of warning. Sometimes the most beautiful things get made right at the moment everything is quietly starting to break.
4. Uncle Albert Admiral Halsey. The world was watching Paul McCartney very carefully in 1971.
Uncle Albert, but there's no one.
The Beatles had just broken up, and everyone wanted to know the same thing. Could he do it alone? Could he be McCartney without Lennon? His answer was this: a strange, stitched-together suite of musical fragments that jumped between moods and styles and barely held together by conventional standards. It made no obvious sense as a radio single, and it went straight to #1 in the United States, his first solo chart topper after the Beatles. He didn't prove he could write another Yesterday. He proved he didn't need to. Instead of meeting expectations, he ignored them entirely and made something completely and unapologetically his own. The best response to doubt has never been imitation. It's always been something unexpected, something they didn't see coming, something that resets the terms entirely. 3. Brown Sugar. The Rolling Stones were coming out of one of the most turbulent periods in their history. Altamont had happened. Brian Jones was dead. The band had been through the kind of chaos that would have ended most groups permanently, and the music world was watching to see what came next. Their response was to open Sticky Fingers, one of the most important albums in rock history, with this: raw, immediate, unapologetic, and completely without hesitation. Brown Sugar didn't ease anyone in. It arrived like the band had something to prove, and absolutely no interest in being careful about how they proved it. The song became one of their defining moments and has spent decades sparking real debate about its content and meaning. But that discomfort was always part of the point. The Rolling Stones never asked anyone's permission. That was always the whole idea. 2. Knock 3 Times. Tony Orlando almost said no. At the time, he wasn't even a full-time performer.
Oh, my darling, knock 3 times on the ceiling if you want.
He was working as a music industry executive sitting on the business side of the table, not the creative one. Someone handed him this song, and he recorded it in essentially one session. Not as a serious career move, just as a side project with no real expectations attached. It hit #1 and stayed there for 3 weeks. And just like that, the executive became the artist. The song that was supposed to mean nothing became the thing that defined his public identity for the rest of his career. Most life-changing decisions don't feel significant at the moment. They feel like something you're doing quickly, between other things.
1. I'd like to teach the world to sing. This song started as a Coca-Cola commercial. That's not a metaphor.
I'd like to teach the world to sing with me.
In 1971, an advertising agency put together the Hilltop and young people from around the world standing on a hillside, singing about harmony and connection. It was designed to sell a product. That was the entire purpose. But the response was so immediate and so overwhelming that they recorded a full non-commercial version, and that version became a legitimate global hit, completely on its own terms. And here's what makes that interesting. People knew where it came from. Nobody was hiding the origin. They loved it anyway, because 1971 was a year when the world was exhausted and fractured and desperate for exactly that feeling. Sometimes the emotion is completely real even when the intention behind it wasn't. 1971 wasn't just a great year for music, it was a year that proved something. that the best songs rarely come from a plan. They come from accidents, arguments, B-sides, and moments nobody saw coming. Every single track on this list has a story behind it that's just as remarkable as the song itself. If you enjoyed this one, you know what to do. We'll see you in the next one.